the idea of leftovers, it seems like a good idea,
Sure,
to have things on
resourceful.
reserve. Yeah, resourceful. But then when you open the fridge and all you're staring at is the leftovers, none of it is appealing.
No.
It's never as good the second time
Right.
around. It's just not, it never hits the mark, right? And so I think that so easily can translate into marriage. It's like,
Sure.
it seems like a good idea to get all of these things done, to check all the boxes, but then by the time we get to our spouse, the leftovers never hit the mark.
Hey, welcome back to the Greater Marriage Podcast, man. We're so glad that you joined us. Man, we just appreciate you guys.
Yes.
This ministry is a vision that God placed in our hearts years ago. And it's something that we have wrestled with and prayed through and written things down and had a vision for a very long time. And so for us to be able to do this and for you to be here and be listening and supporting us, man, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. We love our greater family. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us and supporting what God's doing through us.
Yeah.
Today, we've got I think a fun episode where we are talking about not leaving each other with the leftovers.
I mean, who doesn't like leftovers?
No one likes leftovers. That's exactly it. I think that in marriage, it's so easy to get busy and do life, and you just leave each other with the leftovers. And who in the world likes leftovers?
Right. And it's never intentional.
Sure.
I mean, think about it. Like when you're preparing a meal, most of the time, unless you're a super prepper, you're not trying to make this overabundance of food.
Right.
But then you have some left and it's like, all right, well, might as well make use of this.
Right. Unless you're my mother-in-law who cooks for an army.
An army. Mind you, it is just her and my dad left at home now.
Yeah.
And she cooks for an army.
But we bring R5 and it's like bringing R50. Like she's just like, oh, biscuits and gravy. I guess I need 3 cans of biscuits. Like
she has like the pantry in the fridge that you open and it's like there's not a single open inch. Everything is like Tetrised in there perfectly because she has the fridge too. I'm like,
oh, it's
Mom,
unreal.
There are 2 of you, 5 of us, and somehow your fridge is more just stocked full of crap.
Also because she never gets rid of anything. I feel like every time we're there, we do it.
Yeah.
And we go to Missouri pretty often. We're from Oklahoma. We live in Oklahoma. We're from, actually, Missouri. Live in Tulsa. Her parents are back in our small town, Warrenton. Shout out Warrenton, Missouri. And so when we go back pretty often, a few times a year, and I feel like every time, it's like,
We clean out her
did this
refrigerator.
mustard that expired in 2020 stay in your fridge when I just threw stuff away last time I was here? And it's like, oh, y'all need some cheese for that salad? Pull it out. Nope, that cheese expired 4 years ago. Like I don't understand how the things hide in her fridge. Like it's Narnia in her fridge. Like things just escape for years. It's unbelievable.
We'll just say she's resourceful.
She's resourceful.
She's frugal. You know,
you know
Mom,
what?
You're the best.
Shout out to Mike Height's immune system. eating the food. Listen, my mother-in-law is an incredible cook. Unbelievable. We eat like kings when we're there.
Literally, I
you
think
just got to look for them.
my parents' house is one of my favorite places to go. And one of the reasons is I feel like I'm just like checking into a hotel where they make our meals for us. And, she's the most hospitable, gets everybody's favorite everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I mean, that's just how our family is. We have to crack on each other a little bit. So, love you, Mom. You're the best. Wouldn't trade you for anybody.
Love you, Kim. You're the best. Okay, so let's talk about this leaving each other with the leftovers and what, to be honest, right now we're in the middle of a Daniel fast and we've got a week left, a little less than a week left actually.
A little more.
And
oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
We're
just a
coming
few
up.
days left. And so we don't know. We've lost count of how many days we've been on the Daniel fast. If you've ever done this, the Daniel fast is a principle from the book of Daniel in the Bible where he says, I won't eat the king's meat. I won't eat any wine or any choice breads. I'm only going to eat fruits and vegetables. And so we stick to fruits, vegetables, grains. We do throw a little coffee and honey in there for all of you hardcore legalistic Daniel fasters. Do not judge me. My honey soy latte, I'm not giving that up. But it is a very strict way of eating and just a way for us to kind of prepare for the year. We always do a vision weekend at the beginning of the year. And so just kind of a way for us to draw ourselves near to God and to hear his voice and to put ourselves aside and just kind of sacrifice the beginning of the year and just get ready for what God's going to do. And so we're in the middle of that though. And man, talk about leftovers. Daniel Fast is one of those things where every meal you make, it's not quite what you wanted. And it's just the two of us doing it. Our kids are fasting sugar. Very proud of them.
Yes.
You know, our kids are 11, 9, and 6, and they've decided to fast as well. So they're fasting sugar. Proud of them. But, you know, they're eating whatever. We're making them burgers and fries and frying them bacon and eggs.
We're eating the fries.
And we're eating the fries baked. And, yeah, and so it's like we've got so many leftovers in the fridge. You know, we've got veggie spring rolls and veggie soup and vegetable whatever, pasta and potatoes, and it just stacks up. And so I feel like our fridge, beans and rice and veggies, it just kind of stacks up. So we are very much in the leftover game right now. And so I think that may be where this was birthed out of is simply that fast and thinking, okay, what do we do with all these leftovers, or what do we do when we leave each other with the leftovers?
But the idea of leftovers, it seems like a good idea, you know,
sure,
to have things
resourceful.
on reserve. Yeah, resourceful. But then when you open the fridge and all you're staring at is the leftovers, none of it is appealing.
No.
It's never as good the second time
Right.
around. It's just not, it never hits the mark, right? And so I think that so easily can translate into marriage. It's like,
Sure.
you know, it seems like a good idea to get all of these things done, to check all the boxes, but then by the time we get to our spouse, the leftovers never hit the mark.
Well, you would never serve a guest leftovers,
Yeah.
right? Like if someone comes to your home, you're never like, hey, you know, why don't you guys come over for dinner? And then you just get out and have leftover night, right? It's like, hey, we got everything you want. We got a little bit of lasagna. We've got some burgers from a couple nights ago. We've got some moldy cheese. We've got, you know, it's like we've got all you guys just pick what you want. Like you would never serve a guest leftovers. So why would we, and in the same principle, right? Like why would we do that to one another?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we want to give each other? I think the principle of the tithe. The principle of the tithe is a principle of honor and trust, right? Putting your faith in God, saying, God, I'm going to trust you with my first and best. I'm going to bring my first and best to you. And as I do, I believe that the 90% that I live off of is going to be blessed, right?
Yeah.
And so you bring your first and best, he blesses the rest. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
I know, my cheesy preacher. But I think that same principle can go into marriage where it's like, no, I want to bring you the best of me. Like I want to honor you and show the trust that I trust you with the best parts of me. And I trust you with the worst too. But it's those moments of I want to make sure that I prioritize our marriage and our relationship in a way that shows honor to you, just like we honor God with the tithe.
So let's talk a little bit about why we do that. You know, why do we even get to that place of giving each other leftovers? I mean, I think an obvious one is just busyness.
Sure.
You know, we get busy with our jobs, we get busy with the kids, all the things that we have to do, and it's easy to just let our marriage take the back seat, right?
Yeah, I don't know that it's something that you plan, right?
Yeah.
You're not planning to give one another left. It's not like, no, I got to knock this out. I'm just going to ignore my wife for a little bit while I get this done. I think a lot of it is birthed out of good intentions, but you have to be intentional to make sure that you don't do it. It's not like you're trying to actively give one another leftovers. It's not something you're seeking to do. It's just something that happens when you're not intentional and when you're not focused on making each other a priority.
Yeah.
And so I think that just busy seasons of life can cause us to do this and not even realize it. And then all of a sudden you get 5, 10, 15 years down the road and it's like, my God, all we've ever given each other is leftovers. Like I can't remember a time when we didn't just give each other whatever was left after we poured ourselves out for everyone else. This happens a lot in ministry.
Yeah, it does.
God, I mean, people that love the Lord, that are seeking Him, that are devoting their lives to ministry. Ministry can be exhausting. People are work. People are dirty. People take time. There's an emotional strain when you're dealing with people, right? Being a pastor is one of the most stressful jobs on the planet. And I think that being in ministry, you can be underappreciated and overworked and with good intentions. You know, like you're trying to serve everyone and do a great job and build a ministry and help others. And out of that, ministry couples can very easily lose sight of the vision of their marriage. And it's like, we've given our entire lives to other people and left nothing for one another. And we've got to make sure that we put a priority on, that we make our spouses a priority. Because out of that flows the healthiest version of ourselves. Out of that flows the healthiest ministry, right? Like you and I feel like do the best ministry when we are working together, when we are healthy, when we have spent time pouring into one another and being honest with one another and doing all of these things that we talk about. It's easy to lose sight of them, but when we do those things well, I feel like we also operate at our best in ministry or in our jobs or wherever.
Well, and I would even venture to say that most of the distractions that can cause us to only give our spouse the leftovers aren't even bad things.
No,
they're good things.
Yeah.
You know, they're our kids, they're our church, they're, you know, our jobs. And those are all good things that need attention as well. But we can't let those take the priority. And then I'm also thinking about just the pressure that culture even puts on us to be everything to everyone. And especially in the world of social media, you know, we see this, you know, these picture perfect families, and it's like I have to do. I have to create this, create that, be this for that person, be that for that person, and we're so focused on everyone else that the one person who should be, you know, our first focus ends up just kind of making their way down the list because of this cultural pressure.
Yeah, and sometimes there's a little bit of shame that comes with this, and I need to explain this a little bit, but I think that our insecurity can allow us to want to project, right? Like I want to project that our marriage is perfect. I want to project that our life is perfect. I want to project that my job is perfect and our finances are perfect or whatever. And out of that insecurity, I think when you get in bed at night next to your spouse who knows the truth, who knows your insecurities and knows what you're dealing with and knows that maybe everything isn't as you've projected, there's a little bit of shame in that, where it's like that feeling of not everything is working out. You almost begin to put it against your spouse because it's like, well, you know the truth. And you know that when I had that conversation, I was projecting a little bit. Or you know when I posted that was a little bit of a projection.
It's a little resentment.
And yeah, you can build a little bit of resentment because it's like, man, we're not perfect. And I'm trying to project that we are, but you are keeping me from what I aim to be, right? And so it's like we need to be able to be honest with ourselves and be honest with others and have goals and aim toward, you know, I'm not saying you have to air all of your dirty laundry to everybody, but at least just be honest with others, be honest with yourself, have people that you can be honest with, right? And be able to have that that honest conversation and not resent your spouse because you're not where you want to be.
Yeah.
And so I think that we can have a little bit of, it's funny, I think you called it leftover syndrome. You know, we're putting this together. It's like, I think that leftover syndrome is what happens whenever one partner is only getting the leftovers or only giving the leftovers. You just kind of like, you eat leftovers and it's like, that was fine. And I ate and I'm pretty full, but that wasn't nearly as good as the first time, or that wasn't nearly as good as I wanted it to be, or that wasn't what I was really after, right? It's like, okay, yes, we're fed. Okay, yes, we're fine, but it's not nearly what it could be.
Well, and I think you hit on this earlier about it being just honoring to give each other, you know, our first and our best. But then on top of that, I also think about how after years of that compounding, how easy it is for our spouse to just then expect that that's what they deserve.
Sure. Oh, that's good, babe.
And then that can be, you know, a little bit demeaning, maybe cause them to lack self-confidence because they think this, you know, the person who loves me the most, the person who values me the most treats me this way. So this is my standard for how I expect other people to treat me, for how I expect, you know, my boss, my friends, you know, coworkers. And then it's like, without even realizing it, we have caused our spouse to have lower self-esteem, to have lower standards because we are not placing enough value and honor on them.
Yeah. Gosh, that's really good, babe. I think that one of the things that leftover syndrome creates is a hunger. You know, it creates a hunger for connection. And this is where we talked about how insecurity breeds infidelity. I think that hunger, again, we're not always, when we talk about infidelity, we're not always talking about physically cheating on one another, but just that desire to get affirmation elsewhere.
Yes.
that is birthed out of this very thing that we're talking about.
Well,
it's
when
like,
you're hungry, you are going to search for a way to satisfy that
Sure,
hunger. You know, I mean,
sure.
we're fasting when we're hungry. It's like,
man.
which vegetable is going to make me feel the least hungry?
Sure.
You know?
And when you're starving for attention, when you're starving for affection, when you're starving for whatever that is, just like when you're starving for food, you'll settle.
Yes.
Right?
Wow.
Like when I'm hungry,
Yes.
I'll settle. Like I don't care what we eat. I just want to eat something.
You will settle for Jack in the Box.
Oh man, that's not settling. That's my king's table right there. Oh my God. That's the desire of my heart, you know?
I will settle. I will settle. If
I
I'm
will
starving.
settle for a salad.
Yes.
I would prefer something greasy,
Yeah.
you know? But it's like when you're starving, when you're desperate, you'll settle.
Yeah.
And that's where destruction happens, when you begin to settle. Like I don't ever want to cause you to settle. I want you to bring the best out of me, and I want to bring the best out of you. And the way that we do that is by giving our best. The way that you draw that out, you know, it's the principle of sowing and reaping. Like you reap what you sow. If I can sow my very best, I believe that I will reap the very best out of you as well. And so we need to be able to prioritize each other and to be able to fulfill that hunger and that desire to be there. Philippians 2:3-4 in the ESV says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others." I mean, think about your spouse. This isn't just about your interest. This isn't just about what you're getting out of it. You need to look for the interest of others. Look to the interest of your spouse. Fulfill their needs, meet their needs, and then believe God that they will do the same for you, that what you sow is what you'll reap. And that's not true in every relationship.
Right.
Not every relationship is built like that, where you give your best and you get that back. But I believe that there's a principle in the Word of God that if you will do that, God will be faithful. And if you will pray for your spouse, right? The Bible talks about specifically to women that if they will win their husbands back with their right living, right? And I believe that for men as well. Men, if your wife are you feel like dishonoring you or disrespecting you or not pursuing you in the way that you want to be pursued, I believe that with our right living and with prayer and with us not backing down from treating them the way that they should be treated, and with us giving our first and best, that we will win them back. Just like we talked about when we talked about Hosea 2, that we will win them back, and that God will ignite something in them, soften their heart, open their mind and their heart to you, and will continue to build strength in your marriage. But you have to remain faithful.
Absolutely. Okay, so we want to avoid burnout stages.
Yeah.
And so I think part of avoiding that is seeing those red flags before you get to that burnout stage. So how can we look at our marriage and stop the house from burning down before it catches on fire?
Yeah, it's all about taking ownership. You've got to take ownership of the health of your marriage. And this goes for men. I highly encourage men to take ownership, first of all, because I do believe there's structure in a family. I do believe that men are called to provide and protect, provide a place of peace. That's not just financial provision. I think we provide a place of peace. We provide a place of health, a place of protection, a place of transparency. I think that those are all things that I didn't say that word right. Transparency, same thing. I'm like, hold on, what did I just say?
I was going to correct
what
you,
was
but
that
then I was
word?
like, hang on, do I not know this word? Where is he? I wanted to see where you were going.
That's the word, right? Hammett? Is it a Hammett? Nate Bargatze? I'm not saying that word right.
He's so good, man.
man.
If you need a good laugh, we just turn on.
Go watch Tennessee
Nate
Kid
Bargatze
and just fantastic. We've introduced our kids to Nate Bargatze and they love him.
Yes.
He's clean. He's a believer. He actually came to Tulsa. Our pastor got to spend some time with him and pray with him. He is an awesome, incredible man of God. So shout out Nate Bargatze. I don't even remember where I was. Oh, I think that we have to take ownership of the situation and not allow ourselves to get to that point. Or if we are, just acknowledge it. Just say, hey, I'm going to take ownership of this situation and I'm going to be the one to step up and say, you know what, I think that we can do better here. I think that, and I'm sorry, and I apologize for giving you the leftovers. I recognize it, and I am committed to making it better. And we talk all the time about having long-term vision to say, hey, I'm committed to make this better. Let's get better this week. And then let's get way better this month. And then over the next 3 months, we're going to be great at it. And, in 6 months, we'll be much better. It's like we just continue to have that long-term vision to say, hey, let's start now. We don't have to be perfect. Let's give each other a little bit of grace to recognize how we got to where we are. And then how do we get out of it from here?
Yeah. And then we put our money where our mouth is.
100%.
We schedule those date nights, even when, the schedule seems full. It's like, all right, we're going to make this a priority. We're going to hire the babysitter. We're going to go on a date night. If you're in a season of not being able to spend a lot financially, you get creative with it. You put your kids to bed early. You throw some cookies in. You have a game night.
Oh my gosh, don't mention cookies right now. Throw some oatmeal,
chocolate chip cookies,
oatmeal cookies in
with a glass of milk,
soy milk. Oh my gosh.
And then something that I remember hearing from one of the elders at our church, he said, you protect the white space.
Such a big deal.
And that was so revolutionary for me. And I've come back to that thought so many times. And what he meant by that is when you look at your calendar and you see that there's some white space in there, you see that there's an opening, instead of feeling like you have to fill that white space, which I think is so easy to do in today's busy culture, you protect it and you say, no, Sunday nights are family nights. Nothing else takes priority over that. This is our time that we are home together as a family, or this is our time that we go on a date, or this is the night that we put the kids to bed early. Whatever that white space is, like being very intentional to protect that and save that for each other and not for anything else, I think is such a great way to also put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. So how do we make our marriage greater today?
Yeah.
Number one, protect the white space. Find the time to be intentional, right? Don't wait for it to be the perfect time or to be the perfect situation.
It never will be.
It never will be. You've got to fight for it. You've got to create that space and create that time. You've got to be, it all comes down to intentionality. I think number two would be, again, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but don't wait for perfection. Don't wait for it to be perfect. As you protect that white space, realize that, hey, it's going to be a little messy, but we're going to have to work it in where we can. And then be intentional to do that. And I think that you said it best, man, put your money where your mouth is. Fight for one another. Fight for your marriage. It's worth it.
It's so worth it.
It is worth it, but you're going to have to humble yourself, right? That verse that we read, it says, in humility, right? We humble ourselves to recognize where we are, take ownership of it, and then get better from here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in with us today. We are just believing that if you are in a cycle of giving each other the leftovers, that today would be a new day, that you would clean out that fridge, toss out those leftovers, and start prioritizing your spouse, because they deserve it. Your marriage deserves it. You deserve it. And so we are praying, we are standing on your behalf that your marriage is going to be greater. As always, we have a free resource for you on our website, greatermarriage.com. You can hop over there. You can subscribe, find out about any upcoming things that we have going on. We'll have new resources coming out, but you can also download a free gift for you, 75 fun and flirty ways to keep the spark in your marriage. And it's just a really easy, fun way to just honor each other, just make each other feel seen and prioritized. So again, thanks for tuning in. We love you. Go be great.